We're all set.
You're all set? Okay,
Yep.
just waiting for that voice behind the curtain.
You are good to go.
Okay, here we go. God, I don't have my glasses on. Hang on one second here. All right, welcome everyone. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLEC 30A18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Historical Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website, www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: https://www.southboroughtown.com remote meetings. No in-person attendance of meetings of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So the meeting is called to order at 6:06. Hooray! Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Okay, so the first order of on our agenda is to approve our fantastic minutes, Mr. Lamsa, thank you, from the last time around. A delight, and just so glad to have you on board. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the October minutes unless anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Seconded. All in favor? Oh, I have to do the roll, don't I? Kate,
Yes.
Amanda, Annie,
Aye.
Jim,
Yes.
and I vote aye.
Who seconded?
I'm sorry?
Okay, thank you, Annie.
Okay.
And I think there is an open order of business from the last one, from the last meeting of the minutes of July, which I do not have a copy of. And
I still don't think we can approve those because we need a quorum to approve them, and Annie and Michael were not on the commission at the time.
correct, okay, good.
Yeah, so,
But actually, to clarify that, if they've read them, you can always approve minutes if you've read them, whether you were at the meeting or not, but perhaps they haven't read them. So, but that's just a point of fact.
yeah, I shared them in July, so I don't think they have, or in August, so I don't think Michael and Annie have them.
Okay. I'm going to ask Rebecca to send those to us, and we'll just put that on our meeting agenda for the next meeting. Dean, let's make that an action item. Thank you for reminding us, because I totally forgot about that. Treasurer's report. Happy to have you back, my dear. Hooray! Yay! Payables and reimbursements.
Sorry I missed you guys last time. Just so you know, since the last couple meetings, nothing really exciting, but I did pay for our water bill, $34.36.
Okay, there we
And
go.
the most recent internet bill. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
And on the subject of the internet bill, so Tom LaFlamme is leaving. I don't know if
I know he
you
is.
saw that. So our IT shift move is unfortunately postponed yet again.
I know.
To the great cost of our budget. Kate, when do you have to put in our budget request for?
I have to do it soon. Rebecca might have gotten a request, but because it goes to the chair automatically, but I'll reach out to Brian Valentine and ask him about it. And I will address the fact that our budget's small, that we spend so much of it on internet, see if, we might be able to make a request. I would just say because of COVID, across the boards that, I do minutes for, there's just a lot of discussion about keeping budgets as is, so.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
you know,
I'm sure. However, we do have, additional expenses in terms of,
Agreed.
secretarial.
And I will bring up, I'll add Dean to the budget and all that, so here's hoping. I will work on it.
Yeah, here's hoping. Well, and if they want an incentive, obviously, if we can jettison the internet, then we don't necessarily need the increase. And for the record, we have been asking for this for over a year.
Couple years. It's actually been-
a couple of years to get this, hooked up. So
yes, I will work on that. That is, it's on my to-do list.
okay, perfect. While we're with you, even though it's not on the agenda, and we're going to go to number 6 about any other business. Do you want to talk about the sign program
Yeah.
while we're there?
Yep, so as a reminder, at the end of our fiscal year, this past June 30th was the end of the previous fiscal year, we used some of our budget money to purchase 5 signs from the artisan that we work with in Rhode Island. And then this September, Jim and I put out a little press release in my Southborough advertising that we wanted to give away up to 10 of our signs this 2020. And I forwarded you all the nominations I've gotten thus far. The people seem pretty interested. The people that sent the information, I think, did a nice job. They provided us some good info. So hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look. And then we can decide, take a vote or decide on how you guys would like to proceed. I talked with Bob in Rhode Island. He's got the blanks all ready to go. And that's actually the most time-consuming part. And he'll be able to paint those and ship those as quickly as we are ready to award a few of them.
Kate, I'll make a comment. When these are awarded, and maybe you've thought of this already, it might be a nice touch to go take a picture of them on the house and add them to the program page.
Yes. So actually, I almost always have people, they're always pretty enthusiastic. I think typically when people receive the signs too, I do always talk about how beautiful they are. And I think when people actually hold them in their hands, they agree with me how lovely and high quality they are. And people do 9 times out of 10 send me a photo. So I will either request once they're signed that they send it to me or ask if, they'd be comfortable with me coming to do so. And then I thought once we award those, we could even send those in to my Southborough and say, these are what we've awarded thus far. We're so excited about the program. We have room to, award a few more, so on and so forth.
Exactly.
Hey, one clarification. What's the painter's name, please?
Robert Leonard.
Thank you.
So how many nominations do we have? I see 2.
Three.
So we have 144 Main, which is the old carriage house from the Sears estate, if I'm correct. We have, this one we'll come back to. This is the Werner Oland house. And then we have, do we have a picture? What's the third one? 17 Lyman. Do we have a picture of that?
Yeah, you should have a couple of pictures. 17 Lyman. Did they not go through for you guys?
I don't see
I
it
have,
online.
they sent me the historical photo, and they sent me several of the exterior of their house that they've done some lovely work to it from the exterior. So I can try to resend it. Did you, none of you get the pictures?
Attachments aren't on it, it looks like.
Oh, all right, let me try it again. I'll include it right now. For some reason it's saying that it won't send the attachments. Let me try it later from my computer if that's okay.
Okay.
with you guys.
So, to my mind, I think our purpose here is to, give these to qualified folks and get as many people interested as possible. So I wouldn't mind just giving these out to qualified folks on a first come, first served basis, because I don't think we're going to be overwhelmed.
Agreed.
With these requests. 144 Main, that structure is pretty magnificent. So
Yeah.
I would certainly vote for that personally. So let's talk for a minute about the Oland house. So you guys, are you familiar with this house on Gilmore Road, guys?
Not in particular.
Do you know the Matthews Garrison house, that big, huge kind of colonial house, and next to it sits this small, little colonial era house?
Okay.
It's the birthplace of Joseph Burnett.
Yes, I saw that.
So, but it also belonged to, in the 1920s and 30s, it had 40 acres attached to it, if you can believe that. And it was the summer home of Walter, is it Walter Oland or Vernon Oland? I forget.
She included a ton of that info.
Yeah, I'm looking here. He was the man who played Charlie Chan,
Right.
Warner Oland.
Right. And she has tons of people, she said, that are like always drive by the house.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, they contact me all the time at the Historical Society saying, hey, do you have any more information on, Warner there? He's buried in Southborough, and it was really quite a to-do, because the wife didn't want him buried in Southborough, and they had some sort of split or something. So he's buried here all by his little lonesome. And his family members tried to get him moved at various times. He was Swedish. He's not Chinese at all, which tells you something about the movie making
industry at the time. That they would cast this
Swede in this role. But my question to you is this. So the sign, normally the sign just simply says the blah, blah, blah house. And in this case, it would say something along the lines of, where is it down here? Down.
It was about a 6-word description in the way it's listed.
Yeah, exactly.
Survey, it's very long, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a question about what the thing should actually be called.
Right. She had some questions about that, and I said that it's listed as the Charles Ripley Burnett David Warner House on our survey, circa 1850. And she was like, and I said, listen, we'll discuss it as a commission and make it work.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can simplify the name of it, but I'm wondering whether or not that, this kind of, we might start thinking about a plaquing process in addition to the signs, and whether or not that, houses like this deserve like something additional, like something if owners are willing, something out front or an additional sign, because it should say something like, this is the house that Joseph Burnett was born in year X, and was also the home of, movie star, Warner Oland, who played Charlie Chan in all the famous 30s and 40s movies. That doesn't fit on our current sign format. So one wonders whether or not we want to make a proposal to our sign maker and ask him about what he might recommend for these houses, the sort of an historical marker plaque as opposed to just the house sign plaque.
I love that. Oh, yeah, I could talk to him.
It obviously would have to be a slightly larger format.
Yep.
Not too huge. You might take as a model the ones from London. They're oval, they're blue. I don't necessarily know that we need blue, but the oval gives it a nice shape that's different from ours. And it says, in this house, Virginia Woolf lived from 1822 to 1847. So it says, it's in a totally different style.
It's more like a narrative, a
narrative plaque. Yeah, exactly. So it's a historical marker. And the oval would make it very different than from our signs as well, which also might not be the world's worst thing. Let's ask and see. But in the meantime, I'll do a little research on this and see if we can't come up with a simplified
better name.
Okay.
Maybe. Excuse me for butting in, but
nope, by the way,
I lived in the oldest house in Cambridge at one point.
That's right. Yeah.
And what they did was they called it the Cooper Frost Austin House, the 3 last names.
Yeah, I would be tempted if we were going to do this. It would be the Burnett Warner House.
Olson, right?
Olin.
Well, it says Charles Ripley Burnett David Warner House. Now this is confusing because it's Warner Oland. His first name is Warner Oland. And so who David Warner is, I don't know. I think we have to do some investigation. Yeah, come back to this.
So maybe do that for me, and then we can give her a simplified sign. But I do feel like these people responded right away. They sent some lovely information, some lovely pictures. I seem to pretty steadily sell these signs, and people always seem really enthusiastic. And I just think it adds such a nice touch, and it's a nice PR move for us, right? Too, like people just enjoy that. It sets their houses apart.
Mhm.
So, and we have more to send out, and then perhaps if we advertise that we awarded these 3, we'll have a few more people interested and come forward. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just before I forget, Kate, there's in your box at the museum, there's another sign and check.
Oh, great.
Application.
Oh, good. I'll go by tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. I like the idea of the narrative plaque. We should talk for a minute about, is that going to create plaque envy from anybody else? Do we have some, guideline for who's recommended to have a plaque or not? But I mean, you might have a multiple number of those if the history is interesting enough. So that's one small aspect. I like the idea of the narrative plaque, just to consider other people in the program. And the second thought is that a lengthy description, probably a paragraph or 2 or 3, will be of a different price category than the signs we're having made, and probably not handmade at all. They probably would be embossed or whatever you would do to stamp the text like you would on a trail marker or something. I don't think they would be hand lettered. I could be wrong.
I actually think that Bob would hand letter them. And I would also say, based on our budget, those would probably be signs that we would.
Well, so wait, so there's like 3 levels of things here. There are little house signs. There's these biographical narratives that are, let's call them biographical signs, because they're really not narrative in that sense, because they literally just say Virginia Woolf lived here from 1812 to 1815 or whatever,
Yeah.
But this is the birthplace of Joseph Burnett, and was also the home to film star Werner Olin during the 1920s. I mean, that's all they could say. I mean, then there's this whole secondary thing about memorial plaques in general, about putting them throughout town. I'm hoping that we will be able to work out in some sort of way a series of plaques around up and down Main Street, because we had talked in the society about putting together this walking tour.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, I got a call from John Della Priscoli a couple days ago, sort of congratulating me on my reappearance here, which I thought was nice.
Very nice.
But B, saying some interesting news that he was in fact moving into 84 Main in July, and he will be living in it as a private residence with his family.
Mm-hmm.
So that house will have some life again, because he has kids, and so it'll be really nice. And he's also intending to do public events and open the house. It's after COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
But he was calling mainly because the town has allowed him to landscape and put up this little triangle outside. There's a sort of lost triangle of land between Main Street and Deerfoot roads.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a little strip of nothing there. And he, in his generous way, has ordered a big clock, like a town clock. And is going to landscape it, but also wants our input on doing a plaque that would have like a Q code on it that you could scan and get a larger information about the Burnett house. And he's offered to pay for it. Yeah. So as a wonderful donation. So I think, that might be the model, to, work on that one and to try to then figure out how we could do these plaques. And I think, via the society, we might be able to raise some money for that, et cetera, et cetera. But for the commission's purposes, I think, that's a very generous offer, and certainly something I think as the historical commission, we would want to promote and sponsor, to the degree we can, in conjunction with our sign program. So I guess the action item here, Kate, is for the moment is just to see what some sort of bio panel, let's call it, would cost. And, because obviously we don't have people, we have to depend on the kindness of strangers to, get this stuff funded. So,
Right.
anyway, but I think, that deserves our full support. I ordered a sign myself.
I know you
And
did.
I love it. It's
They're beautiful.
they're really beautiful, and he turns them out very quickly,
Very quickly. And
within days.
He's a charm to work with. He calls me. He just put in a call to me last week to see if he let me know that the blanks were all ready whenever we were ready. He really appreciates the business. I tell people all the money goes directly to Bob, and I think that they're a very reasonable price too. So.
Yeah. I mean, when I had my old incorrect sign made all these many years ago, it was more along the line of this oval thing because I was modeling it on these London things, but I paid $200 or $300.
Yeah. He's really reasonable, and I think they're just lovely. So I appreciate your support on this because I think it's a nice little project.
So Kate, anything else on that? Otherwise, we'll move on.
No, do you guys want to make a motion to approve those 3 signs, that I award those 3 signs, or do you want me to just go ahead and, send emails to them that we've approved them, we're going to work on the wording, and then, Jim, maybe you'd be willing to work with me again on just once it's all said and done, just a little blurb to put in my Southborough, just a second
Sure.
set of eyes. That'd be
I'm
great.
happy to do that. And just to make it that we don't miss any cues here, I move that we approve all 3 of these homes for the signs.
I'll take a second on that somewhere.
Second this.
Second, alrighty. All in favor? Kate,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I vote aye. So unanimously passed.
Yay, thanks, guys.
My part of my ceiling is like making noises. Oh God. Anyway, we won't go into historic home details.
Yeah.
It's like, what's falling out of my ceiling now? Okay. Organizational changes. Election of a co-chair. Well, since our target seems to be missing, I think we might have to postpone that until we're all here. Unless some of you really would like to volunteer to be my co-chair. I had proposed informally that we have 2 co-chairs, sort of split across activities. One to be sort of organizational in terms of the demolition delay bylaw, and the other, the legal business building commissioner aspects of our job, and the other to be promotional along the lines of the signs and how to get good PR for the historical commission so that we're viewed as friend, not foe.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So I had proposed that and had proposed that to Jim and Rebecca, and Jim said no because he didn't like split titles and he thought Rebecca should be co-chair. I think Rebecca.
She's more deserving and has served longer, so I do.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that and maybe the division of labor is just informal. Jim did say that he would help me with a building inspector. I do think, however, that we do need an official co-chair in case I'm indisposed or available or whatever. Someone needs to be second in command to take over these meetings. So I'm willing to hear suggestions. Do you want to wait for Rebecca to come back, or does anyone want to volunteer?
Probably wait for Rebecca to come back to discuss that.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll feel like those meetings where the person not there gets the action, right?
Yeah.
The
As long
Spanish
as-
have a
as long
saying
as
for that. It's voluntario or víctima.
yes.
Volunteer or victim. Pick one or the other.
So I think Rebecca's served the longest and has got the depth of knowledge and really deserves.
Well, she has.
Yes.
I also think that she would like to step back to some degree. She certainly expressed that to me. So, some of the other of you may want to think about that. It's not a particularly odious job. You get to hang out with yours truly. And
Some of us are already treasurer.
yeah. Oh, yes.
Um,
Yes. Already employed.
Already paying those bills.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 4, receipt of completed action plan for 15 Main Street. I talked to Karen Connell. I emailed her today, or she emailed me. They're having a hard time putting together this. She seems fairly convinced of the process, and her architect, she just felt was befuddled. So she asked me for some recommendations for preservation architects. I didn't know any personally because the person we're working with potentially for the museum is a big commercial project architect as opposed to little, but a quick search, put forward a whole bunch of names located within parameters here. And so she said that, she would hope to have this back by December. I said, fine, we're looking to be back with December, and, presumably I felt it very in good faith, and I presume that in December that we will have something in front of us. If we don't, then perhaps a pause in the process is called for in terms of turning off the clock, because we really, the time is ticking away here. Started back in August. I know it was before my time, so I believe it's August. So in any event, so so she hopes to have some elevations to us, showing what they're proposing and some simple plans. So that's December 8th.
Great.
So that's been postponed. Certificate of non-applicability for 12 Walker Street. Okay, so this is a little puzzlement I don't fully understand. 12 Walker Street came before you guys while I was on hiatus, as they say. And it's owned by the Archdiocese of Worcester.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's that little house near the St. Anne's.
Yeah, behind it, yeah.
As such, we have no purview over this because of the Dover Amendment. So this shouldn't have been before us at all.
Oh.
I talked to Mr. Stagno, who was the applicant for this, because he had emailed me a letter from the bishop saying that they didn't want to maintain it. Regardless of what they do or do not want to do, we don't have jurisdiction over this property. So I would like to entertain a motion for a certificate of non-applicability for 12 Walker Street, just to give them a piece of paper to say, this is, because there was a public hearing on this. So I think we need to officially just close this out. So do I hear a motion to that?
So moved.
So moved. Do I hear a second?
I second.
All right. That brings us up to my final point that I wanted to talk about.
We need to vote on that?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. Kate.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Annie.
Yes.
Jim.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And thank you for reminding me about that. Always chime in, because I'm still not used to the big chair here.
Yeah.
One quick question for the notes. The letter was received from a Mr. Stagner, did you say?
Stagno, Stagno. And I will write up that certificate and send it out to him.
Michael, if you want some help writing a certificate, I can do it as well.
Oh, would you, Jim? That would be great.
Yeah.
Send
me a template from last. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll use that same template as each and every time. So as this comes up, I need to have you guys who were here before throw your thoughts back to 22 Meadow Lane.
Yep.
Remember this process?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a request from Tim Black he sent a letter saying they found that the home is not, I wasn't here, so I don't know what the discussion was, but it seems that you guys had asked him for a letter certifying that the home was sort of beyond repair.
Yes, we when Joe was chair, Joe and I toured the house.
Okay, well, he's issued such a letter, and because this is kind of a done deal, and it was voted to be non-preferentially preserved, I'd like to entertain a motion to give him this letter of non-applicability for 22 Meadow Lane. However, I would also like to point out that in my personal opinion, and this is just my opinion, this kind of didn't go the right way. we should not be in the business of touring houses and deciding ourselves as to whether or not we think the houses are viable. We should have independent people tour this as part of the process. And I think that's one of the things that we need to formulate better. Because we're not, I'm among you all, I'm the only one that vaguely works in the Latin construction trades, and I am not certified to do this. I work in landscape. So, and asking the gentleman who's actually going to benefit is the developer to give us a letter saying that he doesn't think that the house is viable is not, I think, the way this process should have potentially gone. But we said that's what we voted. So I think that's what has to happen now. But going forward in this process, when people come together with this process, I think part of the rules and regulations that we need to implement is that we will send, at the owner's expense, an independent verifier, appraisal, construction specialist to give us an unbiased opinion, a professional opinion of what the house, what the potential is for the house. I don't doubt the word of this Mr. Black at all. I'm sure he's a nice gentleman, and I'm sure that is indeed the case. But it would be nice to have had an independent verification of that, and that I think the way to think about this stuff is that to vote things preferentially preserved while this is pending, some type of review, and then if it turns out that this is indeed the case, then you can dismiss this as we've just done. By voting this non-preferentially preserved, we really didn't even have a right to ask him for this letter, okay? Because we voted it non-preferentially preserved. So essentially, our job was done.
Yeah.
So he was nice enough to send this letter, and so we have to just remember going forward that if we wish to continue involvement in a property, the first part of it has to be that it's preferentially preserved, and that keeps our hand in the game. And then secondarily, people can be let out very quickly for all sorts of reasons, which you all know, including this. But we really need some independent verification of this stuff, because asking the fox to mind the sheep is not that we're distrusting anybody, but we want, just like in a doctor, you want a second opinion, right? So we want to make sure that we get this. So
in the cybersecurity business, it's called trust but verify.
Yeah, a trust but verify. Exactly. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to trust everybody and then verify. That being said, I told Mr. Black that we would put him on the December agenda, but given the fact that we have a very speedy meeting this time, I think we can just handle this now. So unless you have any disagreement about this, I mean, I can read you the letter he sent. My name is Timothy Black, representing Kendall Homes. I'm locally licensed contract supervisor, 15 years. I found the home in disrepair and believe the cost of repair far outweighs the benefits. In addition, I do not believe the current foundation is capable of safely supporting rehabilitation of this building. I found nothing of historical value at this site besides its age. My professional opinion, home should be demolished and replaced with a building, blah, blah, blah. So that is it. And so I think we're done by the way the bylaw goes. So I'd like to entertain a motion to grant this certificate of non-applicability to 22 Meadow Lane, Kendall Homes.
I so move.
Second.
Second. Okay. The votes this time I remembered. Okay. Kate.
Yes.
Amanda. Is that a yes? And your audio's off. Yes. Okay, good. Annie.
Yes.
Jim.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Again, Jim and I will take care of getting out that certificate to the gentleman. And we thank Mr. Black for his patience and while we got this worked out. And Mr. Stagno as well. Finally, I have...
Before you go on, Michael, can you have that letter that Mr. Black sent, send it to me so I can include it as an attachment on the minutes?
Yes, I can do that. I don't necessarily know
Great.
that we would normally do that.
But you have to do that now.
You have to do that now?
You have to do that now for the town clerk's office. All the documents that are shared. You might not have to actually in this case. If it's
All right, we'll
shared.
attach it. It's fine.
Well, you showed it and read it, so it probably has to be included with the minutes once
Okay.
approved.
Okay, great. All right, so Dean, would you put that down to, bug me about that, to remind
Yep.
you?
I've got it as an action item.
Perfect. Okay. Finally, we got an opinion from Aldo, our dear esteemed town council, who I just want to say is a delight to work with. I don't know. He's just a character. I've known him for a while, but I haven't had to really deal a lot with him officially, other than maybe 84 Main. But I don't know. It's just a real pleasure. That being said, so we have reviewed the rules that we proposed last time, and he found them to be also the form that you have furnished, which is this, just to remind everybody of this one sheet that we want the building commissioner to send out to everybody who applies for building a permit, regardless of what their, regardless of the home's age. Everybody gets one that has a blanket statement saying it's their responsibility to see this. Do we all remember this from the last time?
Yes.
Okay. So we had one question on that before we sort of adopted it formally, and that was the question for what constitutes substantial demolition, and secondarily, did we have the legal right to do this via the rules? And so Mr. Cipriano says substantial demolition within the Southborough demolition delay bylaw does need to be more specifically defined. As to your suggestion, it would be permissible to clarify a definition by quantum or percentage of the demolition, which could be at least 25% or more as calculated by some formula based upon the square footage of the building and specifically its exterior features. Accordingly, the commission could amend the existing rules and regulations to include a clarification of this term substantial demolition via a specific percentage. Eventually, however, the definition should find its way into a general bylaw change. So essentially what he said was, this is fine for now, but this should go eventually as an amendment to the bylaw to change the official wording of it so that it's in the text. Of course, that has to go before town meeting. We've done that already. We've extended the timelines a bit and various other things, and people have been pretty reasonable about that. So yes, so that's what he's saying. So the question then just comes down to the percentage or the formula, essentially, of what we would like to implement. And what I suggested last week is a percentage of 25%. But I realized in last month already, Jesus, excuse my French, I didn't realize it was that that long ago. How long ago was it? Seems like 5 years ago. That percentage was a percentage of the facade. And we talked about that, and Rebecca was a little concerned that it was a little low and that it wasn't in the spirit of the bylaw. But what I didn't clarify was that percentage would be exempt the windows and doors, existing windows and doors. So if people wanted to replace windows or replace doors or stuff, that would be exempted. So this calculation of the percentage would be essentially what's left outside of the windows, which as an aggregate then becomes you have to be doing fairly large changes in order to do that. So does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
So I just have a process question, and this is probably most likely because I'm new and still kind of learning the details of how this all works. So I guess my where I'm confused is, would this be more of a decision that the building inspector would have to make? Because when it comes to us, they're applying for a full demolition permit, right? So
no, see, not that. That's the problem.
Okay.
There's demolition in the sense of, okay, so stepping back, the bylaw says that in order to trigger this, the demolition has to be substantial.
Okay.
So that leaves you a whole heap and a peck of between zero demolition and total demolition.
Okay.
And so the issue has come up, as it did on 45 Highland Street, as to what constitutes substantial demolition.
Okay.
And without a specific instruction, it's very hard for them to determine, the building commissioner and other folks to determine where this process should be.
Okay.
So what we're proposing is that we give the building commissioner a specific percentage that says, if the plans call for X, this needs to come before us.
Got it. Okay.
Just as a guideline, so that we don't go down the road of having, people, get involved with stuff and then have it, come back sideways. And it's like, well, you should have come before us, or you didn't need to come before us. Right. So the proposal that we put out last week, last month.
Okay. That makes sense.
Was to have this building percentage be 25% or more, as calculated as the gross square footage of the facade minus the windows and doors.
Does that include like siding? Like what if you're replacing siding on your house in same like kind?
No, it's not, because demolition, so there's renovation and restoration and there's demolition. Yep. And as part of this, we've excluded cosmetic changes like that.
Okay.
So that, painting, re-siding, changing out energy efficient windows, all that stuff. But if you're making substantive changes to the facade of the building, and by that I mean altering the shape or sizes of the windows and doors, changing the roof line, taking a porch off the front. And again, this is only the visible facades from the street.
But would that require a demolition permit anyway? Those changes you're talking about?
That's the catch-22 that I was talking about last time, Michael, is that the demolition delay, I think, applies to a demolition permit only, no other kind of permit. And if somebody is merely modifying a structure, they don't take that a demolition permit, do they?
Well,
I think that's what the inspector decides.
Yes, that's what the inspector decides. But the problem is that the bylaw arbitrarily doesn't define what triggers an actual demolition. It says substantial destruction of a facade or of a building or structure. What constitutes substantial destruction? So really, this is an instruction that is to the building commissioner as to how to interpret this rule. This is what this comes down to.
But Michael, we got pardon me, but you have to turn it around and not think of it in terms of, I think for this purpose of making sure there's no loopholes, we're clear on the bylaw itself. But I think the question is really what happens at the building department when somebody wants to do some work on a property. Mm-hmm. And if they want to, tear down a whole side of the house and add on to it or reduce it or whatever, I don't think they apply for a demolition permit. And so we don't have any teeth, any hooks in them unless it's a demolition. Am I correct?
Well, no. I mean, if you want to rip a porch off your house, you have to apply for a demolition permit. I mean,
is it demolition, not just building?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're changing the footprint of the house in any sort of way, in any substantive way, you need a demolition permit.
Okay. Well,
if you're taking down a structure or altering it or taking down you need a demolition permit. If you are just doing minor renovations, you need a building permit. But see, this is the problem. The problem, we're trying to rectify a confusion in the permitting process as to when we actually need a demolition permit versus a building permit. So
exactly.
Outside of for the historic homes, they can make whatever definition they want, right? But hopefully it would be something that's in conjunction with this. But this is an attempt to provide clarification for homeowners and the building commissioner's office, not only for this commissioner, but every commissioner going forward. Because what's happened is, we have two choices. We can do the process that we did the last time, which is with the last building commissioner, which is where they sent us pretty much every permit they received for any type of proposed quasi-demo, anything essentially to do with an historic home came to us first to look at and then to adjudicate in some sort of way. Or they can do what has been done now, which is to make their own call which has proven to be problematic.
Hmm.
So again, I think what the building commissioner has asked for is to have us clarify what, in terms of the demolition delay bylaw, demolition means. What does that mean? You know, and then the permitting process is up to her to grant. I know that's a little confusing, but we've been asked for, not only by homeowners but by the commissioner, to say at what point does this get triggered?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
define demolition, you know, for us. So, you know, let's quantify this as, you know, define. The other nice, so, and just an ending of this, the other nice thing about putting this in the rules and regulations is that they can be amended at any time. So if we find this doesn't work well, or if it's still unclear, or if there's a better way to do this later on, we can do that. But according to Mr. Cipriano, we are able to put these rules into place now to guide this process, to guide this level of clarity.
And then we could go a number of months, verify that it's working before we ask for a bylaw language.
Yeah, I would, you know, I'd like to road test this and to see sort of, you know, because every process at every place is so incredibly different. And I've fielded just this week 4 requests from people interested in buying properties in Southborough, wondering whether or not houses would be covered by the demolition delay bylaw. Suddenly with the COVID and the huge rise in interest in properties here, some of these marginal properties that have been sitting for a while, or that were in foreclosure, or that, you know, that weren't, you know, top renovators' choices, are now of great interest. So it would behoove us to try to define this as specifically as possible, so that we just don't, you know, get into the situation as we did in Highland of having a house that is now 3 sticks left there.
All right, well, so a couple of things come to mind. Dean's only got a few minutes left. I propose that you and I work the definition of what triggers a permit with Lori, or I can talk to her about that. But for purposes of tonight, let me move that we define a applicable demolition as anything that affects 25% of the street-facing facade, could be plural, facades if it's on a corner, excluding, calculated by square footage, excluding windows and doors. Is that accurate enough?
It goes for me. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Can I ask, is it just the street facing facade, or is it?
Just the street facing
Last
facades.
time you said it was any facade viewable from the street, which could, like for 15 Main Street, you can see 2 sides of that house from Main Street, but they're not facing the street. Does that matter?
Well, so yeah, that, I suppose we should clarify that language, because you know, when we talk about street face, so when in historic preservation bylaws generally, we're working down in Dedham, for instance, in the historic district down there, and they define street facing as anything that's visible from the street. It's not necessarily facing, but you know, side facing, half facing is all facing to them. So maybe the wordage would be better to say viewable from. I think actually the wording that we used in the original document that we sent last month was viewable from any public way.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So with that amendment of saying that we would use it as viewable from any public way, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Right. So we'll take the vote. And so again, whoops, Dean, yes?
Who made the motion, Jim?
Jim? And the other thing I also emailed to Dean was just incidentally, Jim, remember that these are now recorded. So if he can't be with us here live, although I really appreciate him being live because he keeps us on track.
Good point. Good point.
He can always catch up with us, you know, later on. But
right.
That's not as fun. And besides, we like having him here. So a steady presence. Okay, so the motion has been made and the vote. Kate?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
Jim?
Aye.
I vote aye. So I will get this out to you all with these amendments, and we'll just give it one look over again next time to make sure that everybody is ready to go. And then we'll get it up on the, get it over to the building commissioner. Well, well, actually, let me say that differently. As it's our rules and regulations, I think it's ready to go now. But I'd like to get it out to the building commissioner sooner than later, because with people pulling these permits and stuff, I think that guidance would be fine. But let's put it back on our agenda to talk about again. And also, I think these rules sort of, just as an overview of these rules, the questions about preferentially preserved, sort of pulling together some of these guides, for, figuring out how we, go do this in the future. I just want to make this a lot more transparent than it's been. And, I'm not saying it's been bad for any reason other than the fact that it's a new thing and it's a little opaque. It's complicated and it's a little opaque, and it's even opaque for me, and I helped write the bloody thing. So, trying to make this as easy to navigate for our folks in town and for us, I think, the more clarity we have on this in terms of, wow, it's on the printed word, the better.
To that point, Michael, a while back, before you were back with us, the town clerk's office suggested and recommended that we also file our rules and regulations with them.
Okay. Well, so we will do that. So I think just let's put on the agenda for next time, just an overview of all the rules and regulations. But in the meantime, we'll get this one sheet out to the building commissioner so that we know, precisely what we're doing. And with that, does any of you have any business or other issues or things you'd like to discuss, or any other business that may legally come before the commission?
My stuff's covered.
All righty. Well, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting date is the 8th of December. Is that correct, Dean?
Let me double check. Calendar.
Yes,
December,
I have December 8th.
Tuesday, December the 8th at 6 o'clock.
And we can drink a virtual toast at the end of it. Well, in the meantime, I just want to wish you all a happy and safe and as pleasant a Thanksgiving as we can possibly manage. I know it doesn't feel very holiday-ish, especially without our fabulous holiday homes tour.
Oh.
And the motion is made by
I'll make the motion to adjourn at
Kate's motioning to adjourn. So before that, thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for all your hard work, and my best to you and your families, and happy wishes for a, if not a crowded day, at least a COVID safe one.
Same to you, Michael. Same to you.
All right. So I need a second on that motion. Who's doing that?
I second.
All righty. And we are, I don't think we need to vote call that. So
Amanda.
what?
Is that Amanda seconding?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Unanimous? Thank you.
So, a unanimous consent, and we say
Yes.
good night.